Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review, and a slightly different episode for me this time, as I'm going to be looking at a film that's just come out, along with the soundtrack for it. Now, the film is the biopic of Motley Crue's famed autobiography, The Dirt, and it came out today on Netflix. So I gave it a watch, and also I'm going to talk at the end about the 4 new songs that Motley Crue released for the soundtrack. So, the film itself was directed by Jeff Tremaine. People of a certain age or a certain vintage will remember Jeff Tremaine from Jackass. So it seems like he's the perfect guy to sort of film the excess and stupidity of the 4 members of Motley Crue. The film starring Machine Gun Kelly, as Tommy Lee, Douglas Booth as Nicky Sixx, Iwan Rheon as Mick Mars, and Daniel Webber as Vince Neil. The timing of this film seems a bit odd. Not odd, I think coincidental maybe. You know, hot on the heels of Bohemian Rhapsody winning Oscars undeservedly. This has come out as another sort of music biopic, but, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody, this isn't, you know, no one's going to watch this and think, wow, Vince Neil, what an incredible guy he was. And I don't think it's trying to be that, to be honest. And it's not going to win any Oscars, that's for sure. It's always hard to try and condense a book of the sort of volume of The Dirt into this sort of film, into a sort of 1 hour, 45 minute film. So areas do get sort of lost and skimmed over, and there isn't as much of some things as others. So it is tough to film a whole book. I mean, it happens all the time with films, you know, trying to film a big novel and condense it into a film. People aren't always going to be happy with what's been missed out, basically. The film itself is a film of 2 halves, of definite 2 halves, really. The first half is an almost celebration of the rock and roll excess of the 80s of Motley Crue and sort of the party, you know, the real life jackasses that they were, let's say. And the second half is the sort of inevitable, sobering story of rock and roll excess. What I will say is the actors themselves do incredibly well to play the band members, and they have their mannerisms down to a T, especially Douglas Webber, who plays, Daniel Webber, who plays Vince Neil. Just watching him walk around as Vince Neil, and the way he holds his posture and walks, and his stage persona is incredibly, incredibly well done. And Tommy Lee comes across as an annoying child. So I presume that's pretty accurate to his real life. The band, so it's hard to watch the sort of first half, let me say. I mean, the opening scene is a pretty much sort of a gross out jackass kind of scene, and it's easy to sort of turn off at that point and think, no, I'm not doing any of this. This is going to be just constant, stupid, gross out, you know, people throwing up on each other, having sex, doing drugs, the excess of rock and roll. And we've seen it all before, really. But it doesn't descend into that too badly, actually. There's only a couple of moments in the film, a lot more in the book. There's only a couple of moments in the film, really, that Jeff Tremaine focuses on that element. So if you get past the opening scene and sort of carry on with it, it isn't as stupid as that. It is stupid, let me say. I think the band are pretty self-aware that they were just 4 stupid sort of, I don't want to say people, but, you know, they were fairly naive in what they were doing. They just wanted to be rock stars, and they made the most of being rock stars, let's say. And I think it does showcase that pretty well. Like I say, it's hard. It all feels a bit outdated in 2019 to sort of feel like you're celebrating the excess of the rock and roll lifestyle in the 1980s with the attitudes we have nowadays, and the whole, you know, the Me Too movement and all the sort of stories of, you know, directors and musicians and artists taking advantage of their position to be, you know, sexual predators and you know, harassing women. And it seems a bit odd that the first half does sort of, not glamorise that, but maybe celebrate that side of it a little bit too much. But there is a distinct turning point in the film, and that's the death of the Hanoi Rocks member Razzle. if no one knows the story, Vince Neil drunk drove from a party with Razzle in the car on the passenger side. They went to get more beer for the party and crashed the car, killing Razzle. And Vince Neil was actually sentenced to 30 days imprisonment for vehicular manslaughter and only ended up serving 19. Now, an incredibly sort of contentious point still to this day is that, he murdered someone and, injured the other two people in the other car and only ever served 19 days for it, which shows sort of what you can get away with when you're that famous. But it's handled quite well, actually, in this film. It doesn't focus too much on the sort of short prison sentence he got, and I just don't think they have time in this film for that kind of thing. And it's not that type of film. It's more of a celebration of Motley Crue as a band and the lifestyle they led than focusing on these certain elements. Nikki Sixx is probably the most interesting character in it, and he's always been the most interesting character in the band anyway. And the film does end up focusing on him quite a bit. And if anyone's ever read the Heroin Diaries, this film does delve a little bit into that, into Nicky's heroin intake and how deep he got into heroin and, dying, basically. And the film does, the second half of the film does start, de-glamorizing rock and roll to an effect. And the inevitable decline of the band members into alcoholism, infighting and drugs. It's pretty obvious that I think Jeff Tremaine, the director, had a lot more fun with the first half. His jackass sort of attitude was probably perfect for fitting the bill for filming these members of a band debauched mayhem that they did on the road. And the second half does feel like a bit more of a slog. But I think it's done pretty well. And I'll be honest, if you're a fan of Motley Crue, you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy the fact that the costumes and makeup are perfect and the actors do an incredible job of being Motley Crue. And the stages on the live settings and things, it's perfectly well done, and it's a real nostalgic little trip. It's a decent enough rock biopic. Like I say, it's not going to win any Oscars, but for an hour and 45 to just watch a story about Motley Crue, and if you've read The Dirt, I think you'll enjoy it. There's not really a lot of depth in the film, to be honest. It would have been nice to, they touch on subjects that they don't really follow up with. Nicky's relationship with his mother never really gets resolved. Mick Mars' health issues with his back gets touched upon again, but never really anything more. Tommy Lee's marriages, Vince Neil's sort of the coping with the death of his daughter. But like I say, it's hard to condense a book all the way down into these hour and 45 minutes of film. And, it won't win any new fans for Motley Crue. This isn't going to launch Motley Crue into Freddie Mercury status legendary because of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a nice little trip, let's say. And I think if you like Motley Crue, you'll enjoy it. Now onto the soundtrack. Motley Crue got back together, in a sense, for this film. They helped produce the film, and they decided to record 4 new songs for the soundtrack. The first song that came out was a song called The Dirt, and I actually quite enjoyed The Dirt as a song. It's a real sort of toe-tapping, nice paced affair with a huge stadium rock anthem. And they shoehorned Machine Gun Kelly's rap sort of near the end of the song, which feels a little bit uncomfortable. And, do you really want to hear him rapping about, chicks with nice big tits? It's not great. But you have to sort of imagine it's Motley Crue in the 80s, and that was them, really. The second new song, a song called Ride with the Devil, feels like a bit of a B-side to the aforementioned The Dirt. It's a fairly forgettable number, I'll be honest. It's dripping in sort of sleaze and cliches. There's not much going on with that one. The third song, actually, Crash and Burn, was probably the best of the 3, I thought. It's sort of a real bass-heavy number. Mick Mars has a really good solo in it. It's let down by the odd little vocal effect after the chorus that keeps coming in. But I thought it was a decent enough song. And to come back with 3 sort of new songs, and 2 out of 3 are fairly decent, that's not a bad number. How much of Vince's vocals are actually real on these songs is anyone's guess, because he can't sing anymore. Now onto the cover of their last song they did. They did a cover of Like a Virgin by Madonna. Why? I have no idea. I'm guessing it's an ironic thing, but to hear Vince Neil croon Like a Virgin Touched for the very first time is highly uncomfortable, and we don't need it. And I haven't got through the song once, so let's just pretend that one isn't there. Dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. So anyway, there we go. Go check out the film. It's on Netflix, and go check out the new songs. They're on everything. But thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week. There's some new albums there I'm going to have a look at. Cheers.